And we're back. Welcome to No Direction, the Pathfinder news, reviews, and interviews podcast. I'm Vanessa Hoskins.
And I'm Luis Loza.
And what are we talking about this week, Luis?
we are looking to make some kings with this new Kingmaker adventure path that is coming out for Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Such as King Margot. Wait, that's a different show. Yeah, so we're going to talk about Kingmaker. Do I want to say sensation? Do I want to say most highly anticipated book? Because people are really excited about Kineticist, but still.
The beloved Kingmaker returns. The king has returned.
That's right, beloved Kingmaker. So the first Kingmaker adventure path came out for first edition. I want to say like 2010. Yeah, I think it was beginning of 2010, January, February, March. I was a venture captain at the time, and I got those books for free. So they popped into my downloads.
March 2010 for the very first volume.
March 2010. Okay, probably got them early. So what I was going to ask you is, have you ever played Kingmaker?
So when I first started getting into Pathfinder with my home group, we decided, okay, we want to try out this Pathfinder thing. We'd been playing 4th edition D&D for a while. I was like, oh, let's try out Pathfinder. That sounds like a fun game. It seems like 3.5. We know that well. All right, this is Pathfinder. All right, we buy the core rule book and they come out with adventures. Let's look into whatever adventure is coming out right now. You know, they have these full campaigns. We'll buy that, and that we'll start playing. And through some unfortunate internet searching, I ended up buying Legacy of Fire instead, even though Kingmaker was coming out at the time. So our first campaign was Legacy of Fire, but luckily we were done with that very quickly. And then we got into, oh, hey, I've been buying these Pathfinder books for several months now, and I have this full AP. Let's try out this Kingmaker thing. So that was our second campaign that we ever played, and the one I didn't have to GM, so I got to play through Kingmaker, and we went through all 6 parts of that campaign. We played
really
all of it, yeah. So yeah, I've played Kingmaker all the way through on the tabletop. Legit.
That's awesome.
Legit, as you know, any campaign can be, because GMs change things and stuff. But yeah, I've done it.
Speaking of GMs changing things, I did play Kingmaker when it came out, kind of. I played Kingmaker Asterisk. That's what we called the group when we got together. We used the kingdom building rules to a rules lawyerly extent, where we were far too hampered by all of the minutia of running a kingdom, and probably tanked the game. But the GM at the time took the Kingmaker campaign and used the bones of it, but so many things were changed. There were just so many things that were like, I don't know, I don't like this encounter, I don't like this plot point, and would just change stuff. In fact, they recognized, as we will later talk about, Owlcat Games recognized, that the beginning is a little bit soft, right? It doesn't get you right into it. And so this GM changed the entire beginning. And so I remember looking at the Owlcat property when it first came out and playing it and thinking, I don't recognize almost any of this, because it is so incredibly different from the Kingmaker I played up until level, I don't know, 6 or 7 or something. So,
did you end up going, you said only about 7th level?
Yeah, we played for a while, and it was one of those things where, campaigns fall apart, and it didn't continue. But still, so that was what I thought Kingmaker was. And I was astounded when I played the video game and was like, this is very different.
Well, the thing is, the video game did also add a little introduction tutorial bit to the game as well, to kind of set up the story a little better. They had 6-7 years of feedback to base things off of to improve the game. And then Paiza went and turned around and grabbed whatever Owlcat learned and improved on that, and that's where we got this kind of final. I don't know if it's a definitive edition. Who's to say? Maybe 20 years from now they put out Pathfinder again for 5th edition Pathfinder rules, or Kingmaker for whatever edition's out then. But for now it's a definitive edition of Kingmaker.
What's interesting, all right, so following the path, once again, going back to following the path of Kingmaker, was originally released in 2010, beloved by all sorts of people who have very happy adventure paths, very happy memories playing it. I remember even the network's own Ryan Costello talking about playing a time thief in their Kingmaker game, home game, and just having a blast. So it became so popular that it was Owlcat's. I don't know if it was their first choice. I wasn't in the negotiation room, but it was the first Owlcat Pathfinder official product that they released. And it was kickstarted back in 2017. So 7 years, it was June through to July, 7 years after releasing this adventure path, they're like, this is the one we're doing for the computer, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And was wildly successful. So they asked for $500,000, got 900, a little over 900,000. So almost 200% of their goal, and 18,000 people plus backed it. So very popular.
Yep.
And then because the game was so popular, this is just like so cool. It's like everyone loves the story, right? Because the game was so popular, 2 years later in 2019, they're like, I know, we'll do it for second edition, and got even more backers in the video game, got almost 3,000 backers and $500,000 raised, a little over, to make the Kingmaker 10th anniversary edition in second edition, basically utilizing a strong partner in Legendary Games, which is a big third-party publisher for Pathfinder, to create the bones, essentially, of this Kingmaker adventure path for second edition.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people were questioning, oh, is this official Paizo? You know, does it have the seal of quality on it because Legendary started things or made it? I mean, it ended up still going through the same development process and editing process that all the other Paizo products go through. It's just that, you know, if you think about the other Paizo products, we hire freelance authors to write a lot of it, and then it comes in-house and then we finish things up. That's, you can kind of see Legendary as kind of like a studio that did a lot of that writing, a lot of that work in advance, and then Paizo.
I like that you used the word studio, actually. So we were talking about video games a second ago, and how a lot of video games work is you have your publishers, right? In video game terms, that's like your big advertising company, and they're the big business draw. And then they'll hire studios to actually do like the nitty gritty work, right? And that's exactly the sort of relationship I think they had. So even though Legendary Games is a third-party publisher for Pathfinder materials, they are a second party when it comes to the Kingmaker, because Paizo went to them and was like, hey, please do all the legwork on this and then give us that product. And then Paizo Publishing goes through and goes through the edit passes and development and all the different passes it needs to go through, layout. And so what you end up with is a really beautiful product that still has that Paizo quality and seal of approval, still has that Paizo feel to it when you look through the book.
Yeah, definitely. And what a book it is. It's almost as big as the core rule book. My PDF, I don't have the rule book or the adventure in hand just yet because I haven't picked it up from the office, but it's clocking in at 642 pages in the PDF.
642 pages in the PDF. If you don't include some of the handouts and stuff in the back, the highest numbered page is 627. So that's pretty good. There's a decent number of pages in the back that are like literally the exploration maps in full color, your, kingdom character sheet and an urban grid sheet that we'd use to put all the stuff down, plus full color pictures for all the different buildings you might have. So like those are still useful bits, but 640 pages. And it comes with this companion guide, which is like a new revolutionary idea for what they're doing in the tabletop. At least Paizo hasn't done anything like this before. And that PDF is clocking at 130 pages. So it's about 770 pages worth of stuff.
Yeah, so you get, if you're getting just those two, you're basically getting a core rulebook size book and a Lost Domain size book just for this adventure path. Just all this content that probably you're kind of set. Depending on how long you play, Kingmaker can take a while. You might be set through the rest of second edition's life.
Well, like I said, when we played it, we got to 6th or 7th level, even though we were playing a modified version. And I think it took us a year to get to 7th level. Now, we got into the weeds on all the kingdom stuff, like full-on role-playing every scenario. And like, I was like, oh, that was an hour of role-play with like, oh, so it's a festival for this thing. And you could just be like, it's a festival and you did it. Cool, checkbox, let's move on. But we would spend an hour, 2 hours role-playing a festival because why wouldn't you? So yeah, it's you can get in-depth.
So I guess we should maybe start by telling people, if you've never heard of Kingmaker before, what is Kingmaker?
Oh, geez. Why didn't we talk about it? We said
We
Kingmaker a million times. We didn't talk about what it is. What
we
is
haven't said what
Kingmaker?
it is. Well, Kingmaker was, like we mentioned, an adventure path for first edition rules. The very second adventure path ever released for Pathfinder RPG, right after Council of Thieves. And I think this is really when a lot of people felt that Pathfinder came into its own. The rules had been out for a little bit. The authors were writing with the full rules at that point, and it also was doing something both classic and also brand new. Hexploration, hex crawls are a real classic thing in RPGs, fantasy RPGs. There's just lots of examples of those kind of adventures, and this is the
Sure.
first time a Pathfinder AP had ever delved into that. But also, it was doing something really cool, which is, you're given the keys to a kingdom. You get to build this up and make it your own. Not only are you
Right.
going out and exploring the wilderness and finding all the different stuff that comes with it, but you eventually, as the title suggests, you making a kingdom, and getting to expand on that and defend it from the dangers of the area, the river kingdoms, and eventually delving into a lot of pretty interesting things. I don't want to spoil any of the story, because now people are getting into it's 10 years old, but now people are getting into it for the first time. So I
Right.
think the spoiler time frame has reset now, which is interesting. But yeah, it's a big adventure path. It would normally run you through about 17th level. A lot of exploration, a lot of kingdom management, a lot of intrigue, and a lot of just taking things in your own direction. It was giving you a lot of freedom to play how you wanted.
That's right. So yeah, you got to like the typical end of a 6-book adventure path for first edition, which is about like 16, 17, 18th level. The second edition one, though, because we have this new like added on intro, right, kind of
Mhm.
bumping things up, and they fleshed out the ending a little bit. Now I don't know what the ending is, but I hear that if you have played it, sometimes the ending is like, wait, what was happening? And they've done, I think, from what I hear, a better job of integrating sort of the meta plot throughout.
Mhm.
So that way it's more ever present, and rather than just little hints and all of a sudden gotchas at the end. So that's good. But between those two things and the format the second edition uses, we're now all the way up from levels 1 to 20 for the entire adventure path. It is a
Yeah.
big, mega, epic adventure path. And I don't want to be completely spoiled, so I didn't look at the actual encounters and stuff, but I was looking at
Mhm.
the creature levels, and it's like, oh, it's a 23rd level creature, it's 24th level creature at the end. Oof.
Yeah.
So you do get up into that big end game epic play at the end, which is pretty cool.
So I know it incorporates a lot of content from. I mean, obviously, the video game was already incorporating a lot of the original
Yes.
adventures content, so it's not like but it added a lot of stuff. It added that intro I mentioned. It added an expanded ending. Added a bunch of side quests. So that's all part of this. And then Paizo went above and beyond and added even more stuff. So even if you've played the video game all the way through, if you manage to read this or play through this, there's still new content for you to find.
Oh my gosh.
And the introduction for the book even suggests, if you manage to go through every single thing, you're going to hit 20th level before the end of the campaign. Like you'll probably hit 20th level, maybe through the 5th book, if
Hmm.
you will, of the AP, or partway through the 6th
Because
book,
there's
way
just,
way
yeah.
way earlier, because there's just so much content packed into it now.
Well, that's the thing about exploration and this adventure in particular.
Mhm.
When we talk about adventure paths, there's like one extreme, which is like on the rails, which I will fully say, like Punks in a Powder Keg, the first book of Outlaws of Alkenstars, you are on the rails. It is a
Yeah.
ride, right? You're strapped in for this wild ride, and you are going from point A to B to C to D, and it just keeps on taking you there. Other adventure paths are like, oh well, this is sandboxy, and often with those ones, they're like, okay, at this point, you can go to A or B or C, and even though you have a choice of where to go, you'll probably end up going to all three of those things. Maybe
Yeah.
you'll only go to two of those three things and then you'll move on, but like there's a pretty good chance that you're going to explore most of this adventure. With something like Kingmaker, because it is so open ended, you have two things happening. One, it's hexploration. You can literally go to any hex you want to on the map. Like there might be certain, I don't know, geological or political features that say, hey, here's a border here, maybe don't go past this,
Hmm.
but it's a tabletop RPG. If you really want to, you can. And there might be some really dangerous things. In fact, I remember even just playing the video game. Sometimes you run into stuff that is way too powerful for you and you have to run, which doesn't happen as much on the Rails game. You know that every encounter is going to be balanced to your supposed character level, so you're probably fine. But with something like this, you really have to be cautious about where you go and where you explore. But that also means that with all those hexes on the map, you don't know that someone's going to uncover every stone and climb every mountain, ford every stream. Wait, oh, we're getting the sound of music. But if, like you said, if they do, like, there's so much content in here, you will be far ahead of the level that they expect you to, because it's probably expected to, like, oh, you're going to explore a little bit and then keep moving on with the plot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All
And the
right.
story, from what I recall, did a good job about making sure that there were obvious points where, like, oh, you've been called back to your kingdom. You can't just be out exploring forever. There are things to do. You have to manage your people. There might be an attack on your kingdom, or things, other events going on that will call you back, and tend to do a good job about keeping you from going out and exploring and basically grinding up way too much by just killing every single shambling mound out in the river kingdoms until you hit 20th level. But yeah, there's a lot you can do, and I think that's part of the reason it did so well, is just that freedom that a lot of people enjoy. Everyone is going through the same story, but how you reach those different story beats and how you go about a lot of the different things is different to everyone. If you're going through a dungeon, for example, everyone's usually going to hit the same rooms, probably in the same order, but ultimately you're going to reach the same final boss. But here, the dungeon is the wilderness. All that you've been told is the final boss is over there. Get there whenever you want to. Take your time, go about it however you want. And some people go a straight line, some people will zigzag around, some people will wrap all the way around and come back around from the back. It's just, that freedom is great.
That freedom is great. And the other thing I wanted to point out in this edition that is surprising and also shows that it definitely had Paizo's touch on it is the detail it goes into for things even as simple as character creation. So in the character creation chapter, I'm going to flash this on the screen because it's not too big of a spoiler. Not only is it talking about ancestry backgrounds and such, but when it goes into classes, it lists things as new as the psychic and the thaumaturge, just to be like, hey, you may have just picked this up and are getting one of those, brand new classes and how it works into this campaign. So I think that really shows the foresight and the planning and the effort that Paizo's put into all this to make sure that it matches and goes along with what they have. One thing I did find interesting as a kineticist lover is there's no kineticist listed there. And if you played the video game, there are notably kineticist characters, and it is interesting how they dealt with them. So we'll put a pin in that and we'll get back to it. But just remind me to talk about that when we get there.
Sure. I mean, while we have the book open, we want to show off a little bit of the inside stuff going on. There's so much new art. If you played the original Kingmaker AP, there's going to be a lot of familiar art. You're going to see a lot of it's the same hex map, for example, and they didn't give a makeover to the stolen lands or anything, because why would you need to? That map worked great the first time. There's a lot of new maps. A lot of it is the new characters, but sometimes there's just updates to kind of more match the house style that Paizo has fostered over the years.
Well, and also I love all the new Amiri art. So Amiri is an iconic that shows up in the Pathfinder video game, which is exciting. But you really get a chance to know her and befriend her and get a lot of her backstory, which is fantastic. Well, they've updated the tabletop game, or the tabletop book, with a ton of new Amiri art that I am just in love with. Here's Amiri beating someone over the head with a chair, like you do. And there is a ton of really great Amiri art in this thing, as well as the other NPCs who maybe we've seen before, but are definitely updated to the specific style for second edition, which is fantastic.
And I wish we could show some of these, but these are spoilers, and I think we want to save people this. But for example, page 7 has this the big thing I want to talk about is the benefit of hindsight and the fact that this book is one complete tome rather than 6 separate volumes. It makes organization a really interesting thing, really useful now compared to how it was before. If you played the original AP, your adventure would only tell you about 20 to 40 hexes worth of what was available right then and there. That was kind of what was expected to be played with in that given adventure, and you'd see more hexes as you went along. You'd have to have all the books to get the entire layout of the area for the AP. But here, because they're all connected or compiled into one book, they can do things like give you this big chart that tells you, like, all right, here's where we expect you to be by this level and this level, and here's kind of like the different chapters, if you will, of the story. And later on, there's also an entire chapter that's just every single hex in the entire AP is presented under chapter 2, and that is also broken down into different sections. It says, you're probably going to start here, and this section is right around your level 1 area. This section is right around level 2 and 3 and 4, and kind of gives you an idea of where you can kind of guide the players if you want to. If you want to let them go off into the level 18 area at second level, go for it. But it gives you kind of an idea to a flow for the adventure
right? Yeah.
to follow,
Exactly.
and really helps out, so you don't have to flip between 6 different volumes. You can just do it within the one book.
I am so impressed by the that chart you mentioned. I'm going to show it on screen. If you're planning on playing this and don't want to be spoiled, just don't look at it, or like unfocus your eyes so you can see the majesty of this chart without getting any detailed information. But this is that story milestones thing that tells you what level you should be for different parts and what chapter or what part of each chapter you're in. And I think that is just so cool to, like you said, to lay it all out like that, because it is in one giant book. And actually, this is an interesting thing, because I want to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
We have had like Rise of the Rune Lords compiled edition, Curse of the Crimson Thrones compiled edition. We have now Kingmaker, and we've announced.
Vaults.
Yes, Abomination Vaults also has a compilation. I should definitely know about that for reasons. It was announced that future adventure paths might also just be released all at once, specifically for Starfinder.
Yeah.
But that was talked about back at Gen Con. I know they talked about a bit about that. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to do this. Do you think this is like the new shiny? Do you think this might be the new way to go?
I don't know. This is getting into
Insider baseball.
Just
separate your Paizo hat from your No Direction hat for a second.
Just know, hey,
do you, Luis Loza, as a fan, think this is a way that this might go?
So what I knew as a fan for a long time is that the Pathfinder Adventure Pass were the flagship product. That is a regular income every month. X amount of APs are being sold, and that means Paizo can figure out their finances based on that. Right? We have the subscribers. Obviously, the numbers fluctuate. It's not always like there's always 10,000 AP subscribers every month. Right. Also, if that happened, that'd be great. 10,000 of you listening out there, please go subscribe to the APs so I can help you more Lost Omens books. But the thing is, I still think that is probably the case from an outsider's perspective. That's always what they're pushing, is the adventure pass. Obviously, the core or the rule books sell well, the Lost Omens books sell well, but you have to wait 3-4 months between books on that. And this regular income is an important thing. I think it would be. I think we, from an outsider's perspective, based on the trend that's going on, we have Kingmaker, we have Abomination Vaults, Ruby Phoenix has already been announced.
Phoenix, yep.
It's likely that what'll happen is you'll see more compilations more regularly, but based on what I understand of Ruby Phoenix, it is not the way that the Kingmaker or Rise of the Rune Lords or whatever was, where it's taking this, updating it. It's not a remaster, if you will, in video game terms. It's just a re-release. It's just a compilation. It's, hey, there were 3 books. We put them all into one hardcover. Then they fit. Obviously we changed the page numbers where it says look on page 14. Now it looks whatever. But everything else is the exact same. There hasn't been a or very minor, like they obviously fix very obvious errors, but like it's not an extra coat of paint or a new polish job on it. It's just compilation for that. But we'll see what happens. I'm sure there's still likely to be an opportunity for things like Kingmaker or Rise of the Rune Lords, where there are like ones that are given a lot of love. Not to say that Ruby Phoenix isn't going to get love. It's just it's a different type of product. And I think
and Abomination Vaults is the same. It was like, hey, maybe they fixed a spelling error or something. I know there was one part where like the same named dagger was given out on like book 1 and book 2, like the end of book 1 and beginning of book 2, and it was like, oh, this is a good level appropriate item, and it was given out twice. And so things like that got fixed in the compilation, but it was really minor tweaks. And at the same time, we have stuff like, and I'm going to talk Starfinder a moment, we have the Shattered Stars meta plot that happened in Scoured Stars, excuse me, thank you. Scoured Stars that happen in, my brain is just like, no, I'm picking it up
it's today. Just a Pathfinder.
Yes.
Starfinder makes it happen.
That's right. It's right. So Scoured Stars was a big meta plot for season 1 of Starfinder Society that was so popular that they are bringing it back as recompiled as an adventure path, which I find extremely interesting.
Yeah, and I'm
And
sure that has a lot of extra connective tissue getting added in because of the
yes,
nature of Starfinder Society.
right. You don't have these little episodic things where various levels are hitting various plots and you're, ping-ponging in high level and low level content while the plot churns on. You have to make some adjustments. So I'm sure that's getting that what did you call it? Remaster, like a video game,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Kingmaker did. I don't know. I'm seeing a trend as an outsider who doesn't work for Paizo and doesn't have insider knowledge of this. I am seeing a trend on these compilations becoming increasingly more popular, and I recall seeing a big positive fan feedback when that was announced at Gen Con that was a thing that they might do. And people are always really excited about it. So I don't know if that's the future, but sure looks good.
It's hard to say because I know Paizo's stance for a long time was that, promising a compilation, a year or two after an AP would have a lot of people. It's the same thing with comic books is you run into, hey, there's going to be a trade paperback. Why would I buy this run of a comic? So I think, and the fact that they've only done 2 for second edition at this point when they've had 5-6 APs tells you that like you can't assume that every
you can't
single
assume
AP
they're
is
going to
gonna,
do it.
yeah, because it would feel like the obvious thing would have been Age of Ashes, right? That was the first AP that probably sold out, but it wasn't. It was Abomination Vaults. Obviously that's shorter, so maybe that's part of the factor, but
that's true. The 2 they've decided to do are both 3-book adventure paths into a compilation instead of 6. So it does make sense.
It's not a guarantee that every 3-parter or every AP is going to happen. So I think one of those, just if we feel that it did well or is a strong contender for it, it'll happen, but don't necessarily count on everyone. And I think there's also like the aspect, like a lot of people are only getting into second edition within the last year and missed out on some of these. So, having these kind of evergreen books every once in a while, like, I missed out on some of these APs, but at least Abomination Vaults is there and I can just buy it right off the shelf and start playing. It's kind of nice.
So getting back to Kingmaker, one of the other things that this adventure path release does that Paizo certainly hasn't done before is the companion guide. And the companion guide is something that is very much like inspired from its roots in the video game, where, when you're playing around a table, you've got you and your 4 friends as players, right? You and your 3 or 4 friends, depending if you're a player or not. And you've got, 4+ people as players playing the main characters. They're in the Kingmaker fashion, they're the main legal court, right? They're going to do all the legal jobs in Kingmaker. But for a video game, that you don't have that. You have your one main character that you made, and then you pick up these NPC companions along the way to fill out your ranks, fill out your party. And so because of that, they kind of retranslated that idea back into the tabletop with the companion guide. And this is interesting. It features sort of fleshed out companions.
I think it features every companion in the game, but not all of them are given the same amount of page count, partially because that part of that was stretch goals for the crowdfunding, right? The more money they made, the more they could put in, so they only had enough for so many. But there's all of them show up. They just may not be as in-depth as let's say Amiri, for example, who has got a lot going on.
Yes, Amiri is extensive. So it seemed to me that most of the good aligned companions, because if you've played the video game, there's sort of like a set of companions that are the good aligned companions and a set of companions that are sort of the evil aligned companions. And they mostly focus on the good aligned companions for obvious reasons. And what's really cool is, so they'll give you their stats at first level in like an NPC stat block format that is interestingly expanded because these are player characters, or, theoretically might be fleshed out as ones. And they have a ton more items than you'd usually see. You can see not just their stat bonuses, but you see the actual stats. It'll tell you their background. It lists all the feats they have. It's for me as a designer, an interesting way to look at, that's how you would do a PC stat block in an NPC format if you wanted to, which is cool.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's all these extra goodies that come with them, like new feats. For example, hanging out with Amiri, you can learn some skill feats.
Say that again.
As you go adventuring with her, which gives you as a GM an opportunity to use them, even if you didn't necessarily need to flesh out the ranks of the PC party, right? You know, if you had 3 players, maybe throwing in Amiri as your 4th player would be helpful. But if you already have a full party,
Mhm.
maybe including Amiri as an NPC that they meet every once in a while, or is a member of their kingdom, gives them some rewards. And you know, there's stuff that ties into the camping subsystem that's also part of this,
Mhm.
and there's even an entire adventure tied to Amiri. So there's just a lot of stuff you can do, which
Yeah.
is just adding more to the already, you know, packed to the brim adventure path itself.
That's right. Amiri, who is too angry to die. By the way, say that again, and too angry to die are 2 different feats that appear in here, and they're both reaction feats, and they're amazing. So I'll let you get the companion guide and go look at it, or go find it on Archives of Nethies or something. But they're really funny. I personally really enjoy feats, especially reaction feats that allow you to shout something out at the table that is appropriate for the moment and also happens to be the feat name. It's like my favorite. It's been my favorite since Go Get 'em in Starfinder. It's like, yes,
Yeah.
I want to say that every time.
Yeah. So I think it's six or so of the companions are have that full flesh out, like
Mhm.
have a bunch of new options and have an adventure and stuff. And the
Yeah, like a
rest,
loyalty adventure. It's so cool.
mhm. Yeah, for fans of Mass Effect 2, I think you'd understand what that means. It actually looks to be even like 8 or close to 10 of them. But and the rest, you know, have a brief write up. Also have some new rules, and some of these are the 2 that you mentioned to put a pin in. Our twin kineticists. What did you want to
Okay.
bring up about them?
Yes, I'm scrolling quickly to get to them so I don't mispronounce their names. But our twin kineticists, as I have mentioned, the kineticists didn't exist when this was being put together, not even in playtest form. And
Mhm.
even if it was in playtest form, it would be outdated by the time it was published. So what do? Well, they took the standard line of saying, just make elemental sorcerers, which sure, like that's what Paizo has officially said for a long time is people are clamoring for an official kineticist, and they're like, just make an elemental sorcerer. It's literally the same thing, right? Which I find hilarious. I just find this funny. When the actual kineticist playtest is a martial class. So that's kind of funny. I am really curious to see, and maybe someone will do this for Infinite, when the official kineticist rules come out, building these 2 characters whose names are Kalike and Kanara, building Kalike and Kanara as full-on official kineticist stats, martial characters, rather than sorcerers. So that would be really cool.
Yeah.
But we do get some fun stuff because of this decision. We get 2 new spells, one called Aqueous Blast and one called Scorching Blast. And they're both rare. And interestingly enough, they're both single action spells. And the reason is because all the spell does is give you the ability to spend an action to make the attack and do damage.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns into like almost like a variable action spell. So you've got your cast, and then
Yeah.
if you wanted to spend all your actions, you could do 2 blasts, or if you just want to do one, you do 1 blast. So it's kind of like a 2 or 3 action spell, because even though technically it's 1, you can't do anything. You're like, I made a spell. Done.
Yeah. It's a spell that just turns on kineticist mode for a round.
For a round, yeah. But it's a level 1 spell is the other interesting thing. And it does get heightened. So because it's not a cantrip, you can't
Do this forever.
you can't do it
Unfortunately.
forever, right? And like you'd
But
have
I
to have
mean,
different levels.
if you're a primal sorcerer, you can always rely on produce flame to kind of replicate, you know,
True.
stuff like that
True.
for most times. It just when you think about it like gathering energy in 1E with the kineticist, you spend 1 action to gather energy, and now you can do the more powerful blasts.
Yeah, all right. But you're still going to run out of them per day, and the kineticist doesn't run out. But still,
Yeah.
I just found that really interesting.
Well, the thing is, their kineticists, these spells are them teaching you how to approximate what they can do. It's not even
That's true.
So it's not an exact exact translation of like you
Right.
can do exactly what we can do. It's just this gets you close.
It's like, well, this
Maybe
is
we
kind
will.
of what I do, and then you can get your magic to fake it. Okay, you know
Yeah.
what? Given that answer, sure.
Mhm.
I still want to see someone come up with a really good kinesis build for them on Infinite. That'd be really fun.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll see that. Looks like I'm a paper ninja in chat noted that's now put on the bounty board of I'm sure the dozens of different things we said. Oh, I'd love to see that on Infinite on the
Yes.
show. So after these companions, I think is what I feels like a lot of people have been really excited. Not because people know the adventure path already, but this is new material. Is the camping subsystem, which is a thing that was originally introduced in the video game. This is a great time in the video game to sit down, chat with your companions, get a chance to meet them, but also uh, prepare yourself for the occasional random encounter that happens while you're camping out at night, or use the items that you've gathered in the game to create recipes to give you buffs as you continue adventuring. And this does its best to replicate a lot of that. And I think it's a really interesting subsystem.
Yeah, it's cool because like at least the games I've played, because it's not really
Mhm.
fleshed out what you do, it's sort of like, do you have watches? Who's on first watch? And maybe you get attacked by something in the middle of the night, but it's so rare that oftentimes people forget about it and they're like, I don't know, we're just going to camp and we'll go back into the dungeon tomorrow, whatever.
Yeah.
This really adds some flavor. And even though there are a lot of mechanics in here with like, well, what are the activities and what are you doing? One, it makes 100% sense for this specific adventure path because you are in
Mhm.
the wildlands, the untamed wilds where civilization has not existed as we know it. Because there are still kobolds who live there and there are still fae who live there and stuff. But you're coming in and carving out some civilization. So because of that, like it's pretty dangerous area. So it makes sense that you would focus on keeping watch because you might get eaten in the middle of the night if you don't. But the other thing it does is really give you some like fantastic opportunities while you're playing these mechanics to do some role play through
Mhm.
the cooking subsystem that they created with buffs and things. There's different like
Everyone
camping.
has like a different job for the camp, so
Yeah.
it becomes its own like not you know shrunken down version, but kind of like it gives you the kind of similar feel of that kingdom building thing with like, oh, I got to do this camping management thing now.
Hmm.
And if you want to play with that, that's great. Yeah, I'm sure some players are like, oh, I don't want to be doing this every single night, but
Yep.
it's one of those fun systems that like it's not. I mean, it works amazingly for Kingmaker because that's what it was designed for, but also you can start doing this would be perfect for a quest for the frozen flame. You're
Mm.
traveling out in the wilds as well. This would be another perfect thing for that. Or I think of other APs that might work for that. I mean, strength of thousands, you're out in the wilderness for a while sometimes too. So
Sure.
there's pluck this and use this for other campaigns
I even
perfectly.
think, like you were saying, like in Kingmaker, you're going to be like resting on the regular, right? So you might
Mhm.
not want to do it all the time, but sometimes you do. And I actually find that to be really interesting because, yeah, it might get burdensome if you do it every long rest. But if you want to do it sometimes, this works
Mhm.
great for those times where you're like, oh, we're doing an urban campaign, but maybe we're going to venture out into the wilds to go see this ancient tower. And that's going to be like, 2 days hike away, and then we're going to do the ancient tower and 2 days hike back. Well, that means you have a day of rest in the middle of nowhere, and that's a great time to just whip out the subsystem, and you don't have to go in as much depth. Like worry about like, well, what recipes have you gotten? You can literally just be like, you're gonna cook a meal, and you're like, well, what are you gonna cook? And they'll explain, I brought some, beans that we're gonna boil, and I've got this, I don't know, elk that we hunted or something.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. And then you can like figure out what one of the meals is close enough, and like,
Yeah.
you can play with it, but you can make that night out special because you usually don't get that. Like usually, if you're playing an urban adventure, you're like, well, it's time to go to sleep. Everyone's going home. Meet back here at the, for breakfast tomorrow morning. So
Yeah. And I mean, when you get a chance to play with these buffs, some of them can do quite a bit of stuff. For example, there's a particular rare meal that you can cook at. It's a level 16 meal
oh
because everything
jeez.
has a level in Pathfinder. But on a crit success, when you succeed on making this meal and everyone has it, you get immunity to diseases and poisons of 15th level or lower. that's a heck of a meal. I don't know what you put in there, but it's very
Seriously.
good. Yeah. So yeah,
Also,
I
there's
think
this amazing art of Amiri I just have to show off of her telling a story
telling
by the
her
campfire,
story. Yes.
which is one
More
of the things you
more
could do.
yeah, more Amiri art than you can shake a stick at, I think, in this AP.
Probably. I don't know. I'm gonna go get a stick.
Yeah, we'll see. Um, and finally, the last little bit of the companion guide is another subsystem. It's a weather subsystem that includes things like random torrential rainstorms or wildfires and tornadoes and stuff like that. It's just another fun little thing that again can enhance the feeling of being out in the wilderness, but it's not a mandatory thing. It's just an extra fun subsystem that I think a lot of people will have fun with. And another bounty to put on the board, I'd love to see this expanded to include more climate types, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want blizzards and heat waves in the desert and stuff like that. If you look at the Lost Omens travel guide, there's a big map that has all the different climate types. It'd be fun to be able to account for all those types there. Who knows? Maybe
Who
Infinite
knows?
will have something like that soon. Um, but I think the other big thing I want, so there's so many things that came with Kingmaker. If you got the crowdfunding project and got all these PDFs or the full suite, you have a kingdom tracker, which is just like a bunch of different, it's a stat block for all your kingdom management,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's this character sheet and all this other stuff. There's the poster maps, which has all the different hex maps. There's the interactive maps, of course, which always come with the APs, which is just the different maps from the encounters and stuff. The kingdom management, kingdom tracker, there's a whole GM screen that's just all the Kingmaker stuff. But the other big thing I think was really notable are the 2 bestiaries for the AP, which
Mm.
are, if you're playing through the adventure path and reading through this, it just points you to the existing 2, hey, this monster in bestiary 2, right? Or whatever, just like all the other APs. But if you wanted to, you could play through Kingmaker with first edition Pathfinder rules, which makes sense. That's what it was originally published for, and it's extra new content. Or you can play in 5th edition D&D.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. These bestiaries have every single stat block that shows up in the AP converted over to your game of choice, which is a lot. If you are playing 5e D&D and you don't ever want to play Kingmaker, you might still want to get this bestiary because that's just a lot of free monsters. There's a
That's
lot of
true.
monsters
That's
to
true.
use. And in addition to that, it has the companions stat blocks from the companion guide. It has all the hazards, traps and stuff that you run into. It doesn't tell you treasure, unfortunately, and it doesn't give
Mm,
you the new DCs for your respective game, but it does like 85% of the load lifting for you.
that's
So
true.
you as a GM can cover the rest. And I think the intros for both of these bestiaries are also particularly helpful as just general guidance for conversion from 2e. If you want to keep playing 2e APs, but in your first edition rules, this has a bit of information on how to adjust things and make use of some of the 2e formatting and structure and rules, and port it back over to 1e. So it's a good kind of helpful conversion guide as well. So a lot of cool stuff in there.
Indeed. Speaking of cool stuff, we do have a question. Fitterfay in chat. This would be Twitch chat because we do stream live on Twitch. Fitterfay in chat has asked, would it be possible to see one of the hex pages as an example? Absolutely. And they also mentioned that it might be a spoiler. So again, if you're planning on playing this and don't want to be too spoiled, just sort of unfocus your eyes if you're watching this. And if you're listening, obviously this visual representation won't do much for you. But here's some of the maps. As you can see, there's a lot of little like dots on them, sort of describing. I put it away so you can look at the screen safely. So there's a lot of little dots on them. There's also like these white lines showing different regions, and they're all called a different thing. So when you're using the weather subsystem and the camping subsystem, you can look at the region you're in and say, oh, well, we're in Tuskwater, and this is like how challenging Tuskwater is, or this is the kinds of creatures that might show up here, or what the weather might be like. So you can see some of those things. And then the dots all represent interesting things to find. And not every hex has an interesting dot. Many of them do, but not all of them. And it also helps you sort of figure it out, like, what you're going to show up, and what's just gonna appear before you. So it's kind of pretty cool.
Yeah. Those zones you're talking about are the things I mentioned earlier, where it's like, oh, this
Yeah.
zone is like a level 1 zone, level 2 zone. So it helps kind of visualize things a lot easier. And there's just so much there. Oh my gosh. I can't imagine how much bigger this book would be if every single hex had like a dot in it. It's just a thing that I managed to to do when I wrote the first part of Ruby Phoenix. It's like I had a big hex. I'm gonna put a dot in every single. There's one thing in every hex at least. But I can't imagine trying to come up with. Oh my gosh, you'd probably have to do an extra 50% or maybe even double all the stuff that was written for this. But
Yeah,
that's
it's going to be double. It's easily going to be double, and
a valuable playground for GMs to add their own stuff.
indeed, yeah. If you've got ideas of what might go in there, yeah, absolutely take one of those empty hexes and be like, maybe it's this here. Just fill it in. And honestly, your players are unlikely to know the difference because there's a wide variety of types of encounters in these areas. So, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So, all I can really say is if you are wanting a lot of bang for your buck, I think Pathfinder Kingmaker Adventure Path or 2E is probably going to get you the most in terms of adventure content. There's just so much here. It's just astounding, honestly.
Absolutely. One of the things that I was thinking about this because we've got like Pathfinder's gotten a couple video games now and a bunch of board games, of various ilks, and not just, Munchkin remakes or whatever. Pathfinder adventure card game. I am really excited in general about all of the different ways that the Pathfinder brand and the world of Golarion has sort of splintered off into all of these different license properties, for lack of a less businessy word. Just all this different stuff that you can
There's
get.
a lot of entry points into Pathfinder.
Oh,
I
wow.
think is what we can say.
Good buzzword, entry points. There are absolutely lots of entry points, and I'm really excited about it. In fact, I have in our news section, we're going to talk about a new one that came up. It's just so cool. It's just such a really fun time to be a Pathfinder fan right now. There's just so many cool things that you can get into.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of the reason why that 1E and 5E Bestiary exists. It's like, well, you've heard of it. Here's a chance for you to dip your toe without having to jump into the deep end quite yet.
Sure.
Don't have to buy a whole new rule set. You can just buy this adventure and still play with your existing games and give it a try.
And it's a good adventure, and you get to see what the world of Golarion is all about. You can see how, Pathfinder builds adventures and how those are put together, because it's very different than how 5e puts adventure paths and adventures together. So, yeah, it's very cool. I'm glad that exists for people to check out, honestly. Bailtech in chat says the Kingmaker CRPG and the adventure card game were my entry points. Very cool.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to say anything more about Kingmaker specifically before we move on to news?
Did we show off the cover? The cover's fun. It's a Wayne Reynolds piece. I know that's always what happens with a big hardcover release.
Wayne Reynolds does things.
Yeah, it's just some characters. These are all nice people that all want to be friends with you and open up a soup kitchen in your kingdom.
A soup kitchen. There is a wide array of different types of characters on the cover, with very different motivations and just lots of interesting people to interact with. So it's good.
Yeah, it's just I'm always excited to see another Wayne piece. They only come 3 or 4 per year, so getting an extra one with the Kingmaker Adventure Path was just a fun little treat.
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah, well, if we are ready, then we can move on to Pathfinder News. Pathfinder News. Pathfinder News. Pathfinder News.
Well, we are here in the Pathfinder News segment where we talk all things Paizo, third-party Pathfinder, everything related to Pathfinder.
Yes.
And we have a couple of, I think, some sizable bit of news here.
Couple big ones.
I think let's start with let's start small and move on to the bigger things.
Sure.
Not
So
to say that they're that small either.
no, they're actually, to me, they're both big in very different ways. So the first one was the one I teased earlier. I talked about all the different like licensed official Pathfinder stuff happening and how exciting it is to be a Pathfinder fan. And what we are getting is a new line of Pathfinder themed clothing. I know that there's going to be a dress in there. There's going to be t-shirts. There's going to be all sorts of fun stuff. And it is by a company that I am going to blank on.
Savage Sparrow Studios.
Thank you. Savage Sparrow Studios. My link was opening slowly. So Savage Sparrow has done a lot of like fun and cutesy stuff that is sort of like fantasy but non-specific. And they are doing a whole line of stuff that is supposed to be goblin themed, which is super cool. And it includes a dress. And I am just with pockets, a dress with pockets. I am so excited about the dress.
Yeah, and based on what it was, just a kind of a press release-ish, a little announcement on the Paizo blog, and says that they're looking to do a crowdfunding project here very soon. Autumn of 2022 is what it says, launching on Kickstarter. So it'll be exciting. I'm sure that's going to include things like, I honestly don't know the details on that, but I assume it'll be like, oh, you can kind of have pre-order your shirt or dress or whatever you're getting from them then as part of that Kickstarter. And also, maybe support a cool company. I've looked at some of their other offerings. They have a fun shirt that is a mashup of Fooly Cooley and Scott Pilgrim that I thought was really fun.
That's cool.
On their site. So, it's not all just fantasy stuff. It's also like, this kind of general nerdiness, which is always a good time, I think.
Yeah, lots of nerddom, lots of geekery. It's a really cool company, and I remember when it was announced, I was like, who? And I looked them up, and I have been super hype about it since then, because I've seen what they can do without a Paizo license, and now with a Paizo license, it's going to be fantastic. And I 100% will be signing up for that dress as part of the Kickstarter, guaranteed. Oh, yeah. Probably a bunch of other stuff too.
I'm sure.
The other big piece of news.
Oh no, I have an interim.
Oh, interim.
Yes, we have. Because the biggest piece of news, I think we'll save for right after this. There was some weird stuff that happened in the last couple of weeks in the Paizo sphere. Pathfinder fans were getting sent weird things in their downloads, getting weird stuff in the mail, if you will.
No Direction even got one. We got a weird page, I guess, from the Dark Archive that didn't match up with anything else. Yeah, we put it on Twitter to see if people knew what it was.
And wouldn't you know it, Paizo has officially revealed that like there was something going on, and they talk about it on a blog post. Mostly, I'm not going to go into anything because this is a chance for you to, if you haven't seen any of this, there's a lot of involved. I will say that it is an ARG, an alternate reality game. Kind of a puzzle hunt kind of thing, but I'll leave that to you to figure out what that was and what that led to. But it was connected to the Dark Archive, and was just an interesting little thing. I was well aware that it was happening for many months. James Case, who was the design lead for that book, had a lot of interesting plans for that, and this was one of them. So it was cool to see that out in the wild finally, and figure out or watch people figure that out and start putting the pieces together and ultimately solve this mystery that was going on. And I think it was just kind of exciting to get the community together for a few weeks and get them all excited for something like this.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, this was a really interesting puzzle. And I remember when the network was first approached, to talk, like to reveal a piece, basically. They were like, here's what we're doing, and you get one piece. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. So they gave us the piece, and it was so much fun to release and be like, oh, we found this thing, and just like be part of that process, because this is a really it's a really fun way, especially with the Dark Archive, to use a puzzle like this to get fans involved in revealing what that web supplement is going to be. And I just thought it was very clever. And so hats off to James for like putting this whole puzzle hunt together to figure out what this new piece of the Dark Archive is. It's very cool.
Yeah. I'm also glad no one ever asked me like, hey, what is this thing? Because I had to play coy officially.
Yeah.
So thank you, fan base, for just sticking to following the puzzle on your own, not reaching out to anyone for hints. I'm sure some people got tapped, but not me, at least.
I did get tapped, and I just played dumb. I was like, I don't know. It was just showed up in the No Direction inbox, and we thought we'd share it. We don't know what it is. I apologize to those people that I talked to. I lied to you. I did know what it was, and I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable.
I know. I'm so untrustworthy.
All right. And I think we can go into this final pretty big piece of news.
This is big. This is big. So the big piece of news is that Lisa Stevens, owner of Paizo Publishing and longtime president and CEO, took a step back a little while ago, but she is finally now fully retiring. She's like, I'm done. I'm going to go play with Star Wars figurines or whatever it is Lisa does in her free time. I don't know her personally, so I have no idea, but I know she likes Star Wars. But she's going to retire from gaming and leave the company in the hands of the leadership team. She still owns the company, so like that's still a thing. But yeah, she's letting newer blood take the wheel in terms of the leadership team and continue to steer the company right and make fantastic products. So it's you know, with all the things that she has been involved with in the RPG community at large and in the tabletop gaming community throughout her extensive career, she has touched on so many world-renowned products, like stuff that people play all over the world and definitely know. And if you are a tabletop RPG nerd and know about all the stuff, like she's touched half of it. And it's just really, it's just like a giant that has touched so many things to be retiring. It's like, ooh, this is really the end of an era sort of moment.
Her blog post announcing this says she's been at this for 35 years and includes, name drops a couple of things like White Wolf Magazine, Ars Magica, Vampire the Masquerade, obviously Pathfinder and Starfinder, a little game called Magic the Gathering.
What's that?
Probably some indie thing.
I thought it was the 5 Magics.
So yeah, a heck of a career, right? Like this is just something else. So I'm sure that's a well-deserved rest at this point with all that under her
sure
belt.
No, I wasn't making fun when I said go play with fun Star Wars stuff. Like literally, like after 35 years, I would want to rest too. I'd be like, hey, I did my thing. I'm just gonna go enjoy. So cool. Yeah, I'm curious to see if this has any ripples or heralds any other like future changes for Pathfinder. And I'm gonna guess no, actually. Partially because she had that sort of soft step down before from being, a president, and she was just decided to be CEO. I think I have that right. But she decided to step back a while ago and kind of softly give the reins to the rest of the leadership team, just checking in and making sure things are on the right track. And the fact that she is fully retiring now tells me that she thinks that the leadership team is on the right track, which gives me a lot more confidence that we'll see some really good things in Paizo's future.
Yeah. Be exciting times ahead for Paizo.
That's the big news.
Yeah. I think that's all the big news that I recall seeing the last.
Yeah, that's all the big news we can talk about, right, Louise?
Wink. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just trying to get you to reveal something you're not supposed to. Not because I want you to get in trouble. I just want more information.
I can't tell you that we're making Kingmaker 2. Kingmaker in space. Wait, no.
That's right. Kingmaker was so popular. We already did that. We already made Kingmaker 2, Kingmaker in space.
No, that actually, there is one of those, right? That's what's that Starfinder AP? I can't remember.
The one that everyone calls Kingmaker in space.
Kingmaker in space.
I had the name until we started calling it that, and I can't remember. Yeah. Maybe Chad will help us out.
Yeah, or go ask on Beyond, and they'll be able to tell you what it is.
Oh,
that's not my job here on No Direction Prime. I don't need to keep track of what's happening in Starfinder Land. That's in the future.
Right, yeah.
Future problems.
An unknown amount of time in the future after they've lost an entire planet. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Horizons of the Vast.
Yes,
Project
that's it.
JCO. Thank you so much. That is what it's
Thank
called.
you.
All right, cool. Fantastic. All right. Well, I think it's time for one more piece of news, which is actually not Paizo or Pathfinder news directly. It is No Direction Network news.
Yeah.
This is your news.
This is my news. Well, I think this is hard to do.
I
It's so
know.
much easier to just
That's why I'm making you do it.
point at a blog post and be like, yeah, just read that. So I love working here on the No Direction Network. I say working, it's very much just like a fun thing I get to do. It's not even work.
Playing with your friends.
Playing with my friends, playing Star Wars and Pathfinder with people I know. But I've reached a point in my life and my career where I think I unfortunately can't stay as committed to the No Direction Network as I have in the past 6 years now. I mean, if you have been here that entire time, you will have noticed there hasn't been a Monstrous Physique in a while. And part of that is I thought that ending with the Costello Bot 4000 was kind of a nice capstone on that. But also just work and life and stuff has been such that I can't remain committed the same way. Haven't been putting out Valiant for a little bit. That there will be news to come on that, but I mean, the ultimate news is Valiant will be coming to an end in the coming months. We recorded our final gathering this last weekend, actually, and Legend Lore is on hiatus for the moment. I don't foresee Lauren just like sitting there idly and being like, no, I'm not gonna just let this thing die. She loves Pathfinder and loves talking about it and loves talking about Vikings, but I am in the process of stepping away from the network at the moment. I don't think I'm leaving No Direction Prime quite yet. I think we don't have you don't have a someone else to fill in the slot quite
That's
yet.
right.
So
I don't have any other new hosts to announce right now.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that. So I'm going to stick around until we get that sorted out.
But what we're going to do too, so No Direction, unless any big news drops that we need to talk about, No Direction is going to take about a 1 month hiatus where we do some internal house cleaning. We're going to take the time to make sure that we're picking like a good host, because even though no one can replace you, Luis, I need
to be replaced.
Well, we've had like a rough 9 months here on No Direction. Losing hosts for a variety of reasons, and the timing just happened to be that it's all within 9 months. So it's not a failing, I don't believe, on No Direction. It's just everyone, every individual, Ryan, Param, and yourself all have their own individual reasons for seeking other things. And I'm sure, what you've got coming up next is going to be big, and we're all going to be very excited for you. So I think it's not
Kingmaker
that.
That's what I'm doing.
But because like myself and the other folks at the No Direction Network are huge fans of Pathfinder, of Paizo, and we want to see the show keep going, we want to continue to be your premier news network, we're going to take our time to just make sure that we're stepping in the right direction. If you want to consider it like an under renovation time, right? So we're going to put some big curtains up in the windows, do some internal renovation, and then launch anew in about a month. Now, during that time,
there's been enough shakeups at No Direction that there needs to be some time to get our feet under ourselves.
Exactly.
Or get our feet on the ground.
The ground under our feet. Yeah.
Ground under our feet. Like I can't even do the analogy. You can't even. Idiom
it's
right.
Fine. So we're just trying to make sure that that we have a strong direction at No Direction, and know what we're going to be doing 6, 9 months, 2 years from now, and have a good plan.
We need to do our preparation so we can cast No Direction again.
That's right. So I can cast No Direction. we need a long rest for a moment.
We need to find the path again ourselves.
Find it. That's right. New Direction. One Direction. Wait, that's a band. So that's what's going to happen. What you're going to expect is that while we're on hiatus, essentially network content is optional based on the programs that there are. So, for example, you are likely to see Intrepid Heroes and other things like that, depending, but you're not like Louise said, you're going to see the end of Valiant. You might see some bloggers take some time off as well. So just expect a little bit of a slowdown over the next month or so, and then we'll come back with gusto, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it might be me coming back within that month.
Yeah.
While we're still sorting things out, or it might be
Yeah.
someone else. But
Yeah,
I
Louise
don't know.
doesn't have an exit date.
I'll still be here. I'll still you can still ping me on the Discord and everything. I'll still be around and yelling at Ryan as I do sometimes. But it may just not be on this screen in the same capacity as time goes on, and eventually it won't be for sure.
Well, we'll definitely still have you back as a guest.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to come back and talk up every Lost Omens book from here on until they tell me to stop.
We will not do that.
Yeah. So though I do think you should bring on Eleanor for Lost Omens Impossible Lands, because she was spearheading that. She was here's some secret Pathfinder Paizo insider knowledge.
Tell me the secret stuff.
There's going to be a new credit in the book, in the Lost Omens book. It's not going to be every Lost Omens book, but Impossible Lands definitely earned it. Eleanor and I are listed as lead developers or development leads or whatever it is.
Sure.
And that's still going to remain the same. We're both still working on that. But because Eleanor was spearheading things and was very much in charge of a lot of the decisions, she's also going to be listed as a narrative lead for Impossible Lands.
So I like narrative lead. That's cool.
Having the narrative lead of Impossible Lands is probably a good get if you can manage that.
That sounds really cool. I like that title too. That makes sense. Lead of a narrative lead. Like,
we both read through everything and developed everything, but when it came time to question things, I asked Eleanor, what do we want to do with this? And she was the one making the final calls.
Very cool. Yeah, we'll definitely have her on. All right. Well, if you are invested in the network as we are, and you have specific things that you want to see from the network, like more of this type of content, more of that type of content, I would absolutely invite you to join the conversation on our Discord server. It is one of the chillest places to hang out and talk about Pathfinder on the internet. And so if you want to get there, you can go to nodirectionpodcast.com and click on the big old Discord link, and that'll take you right there. And just, as I said, join the conversation. Say, hey, I like these parts of the shows, and I'd like to see more of this sort of stuff, and help us sort of get that ground back under our feet, like Louise was saying, to make sure that when we do this big new revamp we're doing, we come out on the other side giving you the stuff that you want. So definitely let us know what that is. And if you are a huge fan of the show and you're like, but I love No Direction, you could also become a Patreon. Patrons who join Patreon and help us do things like keep our equipment up to date so that we keep sounding good and can deliver fantastic shows to you in real time. You can do that on patreon.com, search for No Direction. There's also a link on the website. And as an extra special bonus, if you link your Patreon to your Discord account and join our Discord server, you have access to the Patrons Private Sanctuary, a special show just for patrons right after our live No Direction show in just a few minutes as we finish up here.
Yes,
for sure. You should do that. All right. I think it's time for the very last segment of the show, wrap-ups and shout-outs. Will you do me the favor, the honor of doing the goblin voice? I bet you could. I'm putting him on the spot.
I've been afraid of this whole time. It's like, I know that sometime you were going to just ask me to do the wrap-ups and shout-outs. Wrap-ups and shout-outs. Wrap-ups and shout-outs.
Oh my gosh. Your microphone freaked out so badly. I think that was the automaton, the automation doing wrap-ups and shout-outs.
It couldn't handle it. I'm so sorry.
It just sounded so funky, but that's fine. All right, cool. So wrap-ups and shout-outs. Geez. I mostly just
hold on. First, we say, hey, thanks for listening to No Direction episode 284, our Kingmaker breakdown. Before we go, we want to shout out to all the different things that we're enjoying in life, not just Pathfinder stuff, but anything that we're interested in. And Vanessa sounded like you were going to have something and had it prepared, because I sure do as well. But you can go first.
No, I've got random stuff. So,
sure.
So first, I'm gonna like tip my own hat. Vellum and Lace
Mhm.
is going full charge. We're starting on our second meta arc. We finished our first one, and we're going full speed on the second one. And we're gonna try and have an episode out this month. Maybe, maybe not, but it depends on what my schedule turns into. But we're gonna try and do that. And if you are paying attention to the first one, there is revenge to be had. There is someone
Ooh.
who has a comeuppance, and we're gonna see them get their comeuppance. So that will be very exciting. So definitely check out Vellum and Lace on Pathfinder Infinite, an episodic series of fiction taking place in Absalom. So that is cool. I have other stuff too.
Oh,
Should I just
are
keep on
you?
going? I'll just
You
keep
can
on
keep
going.
going. Yeah.
All right. So the other thing I wanted to talk about that's really cool. So oh geez, is it even up yet? I think I just got a thing that it might be up. Hold on.
Ooh, it's an exclusive breaking
It's
news.
It's great. Well, it's not Pathfinder news, but it's tabletop RPG news. So a
Yeah,
good friend
that's.
of mine, here it is. Yes, okay, great.
Mhm.
A good friend of mine is launching a Kickstarter for a reprint, a second printing of their game called Valor. So if you like tabletop RPGs and you are like, yes, and Pathfinder is my favorite, obviously, but sometimes you might want to play in like a very anime-ish system, right? You want
Yeah.
to just be like literally shouting the names of your abilities before you use them and just kind of doing off the wall anime stuff.
Mhm.
She has a system called Valor that is amazing. And it's got this reprint coming up. I'm going to link to their Kickstarter. It should be launching soon. They accidentally launched the other day and then had to take it down and then like put the a new one saying it was coming soon because oops, hit the wrong button. But it is a very cool system. It uses D10s almost exclusively, and it's I don't know how to explain it. Like it uses like a stamina system, so moves make you tired and all sorts of cool stuff. It's bonkers. Like the system doesn't even have a basic I just attack you basic attack. Like you have to make it all up yourself. So your basic attack is different than my basic attack, which is different than someone else's basic attack. Very cool. So check that out. It's called Valor, and I love it. And I play in one of their actual plays called Weave, and I am blanking. I'm doing a bad job at this. I had a document open with this, and I closed it, and I said don't save it, and now I don't have it anymore. That's what happens when you get old and tired.
That's why we're taking a break.
It's
Get things lined up again.
That's right. It's called The Woven. Is the one I do, and it's on
Mhm.
their Twitch channel, which I will also link in chat. That's it. Those are my two big ones.
Okay. I too have a self plug to give here. Tomorrow, as of right now, tomorrow, or if you're listening to this recording, it's already out. But I'm
Oh,
releasing a new third-party Pathfinder product, and
again?
it's not going on Infinite.
What?
It's just going straight to drive through because of reasons. Um, but
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, the reason is because then it's not locked into the Pathfinder Infinite environment. If I wanted to expand on it later in, like,
Sure.
let's say a Kickstarter or something, I could
Oh
do
yeah,
that. Um,
that's true.
so, and this is not the first time I've released third-party product in that way. I had my Rabbit Folk Ancestry that came out just third-party, not Infinite, because that wasn't even a thing. But hey, speaking of Rabbit Folk, this is more ancestry-related stuff. I have a book product coming out called Ancestries Unleashed Core Ancestry Options, which is giving you like 6 or 7 new heritages for each of the core ancestries and a bunch of new ancestry feats and a bunch of extra little things here and there. That's coming out on drive through tomorrow, and I'm going to be announcing that stuff once it goes live.
Awesome.
It would have gone out over the weekend, but since it's my first non-infinite product, they had to go through the whole approval process of like, oh yes, here's your company and we approve your first product and stuff. And that it's like, okay, I didn't know that was a
Awesome.
thing. I thought I could just publish it right away. So
Nope.
yeah, it's coming out. It's ready to go. I'm just got to hit the go button for tomorrow. So look out for that. I'm going to
Yes.
share links all over. And of course, I'm going to throw a link into the KD Discord
Yes.
and probably every other Discord. If you're a big Pathfinder fan, I'm probably in every other Discord that you're in as well. And you'll see my links in there. So that's coming out. If you're interested in that, check it out. But the non self plug that I had is for Sword Timber. Do you know about Sword
Sword.
Timber?
I don't. What is sword timber?
Um, So Swordtember is a thing that a lot of artists participate in every September, which is kind of, I think Droptober is the other one that I can think of, where like
Okay.
you just spend a month like every day doing some kind of illustration, some kind of drawing, whatever your medium is. And Droptober, I think, is just do something every day, so you know, get some practice in and
Sure. Okay.
stuff like that. But Swordtember specifically is draw a new type of sword every day. And if you go look up Swordtember on Twitter and stuff,
So
you're just
cool.
gonna see lots of amazing, cool weapons. I'm looking at one now that is just like a candlestick as a sword, and lots of just interesting stuff. Great artists that you can check out. It's just really interesting to see a lot of fun inspiration for new weapons for your RPGs if you really want. You know, you can use these as a starting point for a new magic sword or something.
Hmm.
And just a lot of a chance for a lot of artists to showcase their work. And you know, you might
Okay.
find someone that has something really cool and might inspire you for your games, or might even inspire you to you know, pay for a commission from some of these artists if you really wanted to, if that's something that was available. So yeah,
Yeah. I'm looking
I'm
at it
always
now, and there's some
looking at
very
lots
cool
of cool
stuff
art.
here.
Yeah. And you know, we're only not even halfway through the month, so there's still going to be so many more swords to come. Go just see a lot of fun stuff.
Okay, but like, okay, so I don't usually draw other than like maps. Should I try and do sword timber?
You could, or you know, if you wanted to, you could maybe nab, excuse me, not nag, nab a couple of these swords and maybe stat them up in Pathfinder or something as like
Well, with
a thing you
permission
do in
from the
the.
art.
Well, you jump into the reply and it's like, oh, I
Oh, I
statted
see.
this up, and you know, you wouldn't obviously like take their art and be like, look at this new sword I made, but
Oh,
you
I see.
jump in and
Like
be like,
I could quote tweet it on
yeah, and be like,
Twitter and be
mhm.
like, "Here are the stats for this
Yeah,
sword."
here's some stats if you wanted to
Very
play with
cool.
it or something. If for
All
any
right.
swords that you really like, and some people actually are providing stats or details on them. I'm sure there's so many artists that play RPGs that you know have thought about these. But yeah, just a fun thing. It's a great exercise, I think, for new weapons. They're not all swords, so you can find lots of interesting stuff, and just people get really creative with it. I think it's always a fun time.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Well, darn, I'm gonna have to start looking at sword timber. That's
Hmm.
very cool. All right, well, I think this brings us to the end of the show. Thank you very much for joining us for No Direction episode, was it 284?
284.
Jeez, we're getting up there. Thank you very
Hmm.
much for joining us for episode 284. Please join our Discord and please hang out with us there because we are lonely people who are in need of comfort and chatting. No, I'm just kidding. We're very approachable and it's a lot of fun there. Thank you very much. And if you need to find the path, you need no direction.